Okay, let's talk about putting for a minute. You know that feeling, right? You're standing over, say, a 6-footer, feels makeable.
Hmm.
You've looked at it from all angles, you feel good about the stroke, and then, nope, it just lips out or curls away. So frustrating.
Yeah, it's a classic golf moment, isn't it? And forever, golfers have relied on their eyes, maybe some plumb bobbing.
Which is a whole other debate.
Right. And then there's this massive effort to just memorize breaks.
Mhm.
Imagine trying to remember every possible pin on every green.
It sounds exhausting just thinking about it, like green reading brain training through sheer memory.
Exactly. And it highlights, the uncertainty in those traditional ways. Your eyes
Yeah.
can trick you. Feel is tricky under pressure.
No kidding. And memorizing, that's a huge ask.
It really is.
So what if there was a more, I don't know, scientific way? That's what we're looking at today. We're doing a deep dive into this thing called the Puttalyze app.
Well, yeah.
It seems to take a really different tack, based more on maths and physics than just intuition.
That's the core idea, moving away from pure estimation.
So our mission here is basically to figure out how this app works, what's the science saying, and could it actually give golfers, a real edge? We're looking at info about the app itself and its methodology.
And it's interesting because it tries to tackle that core problem head on. How do you quantify the slope and its effect? Traditional methods often struggle with that precision.
Right. You can stare at a slope, but getting it exactly right consistently. Tough. So Puttalyze aims to cut through the myths and intuition, as they put it.
It uses a few key concepts. There's the aim point.
Okay, where you're aiming. Makes sense.
Yep. Then distance point, basically how far past the hole the ball would go if it didn't break, sort of a pace indicator.
Right, okay.
And target speed, the ideal pace. It's essentially simulating how the ball is going to roll on that tilted green.
So it needs info from the user.
Yeah, exactly. You need to tell it things like the slope, the green speed,
Right.
the stimp rating. And based on those inputs, it crunches the numbers and then shows you the predicted path visually.
That visual part seems key. Takes out some guesswork.
It definitely reduces uncertainty, gives you a clear target, which can really help confidence.
Okay, so that's the what. But let's get into the why. What's the science actually doing here? How does it make that prediction?
Well, fundamentally, it's based on the physics of a rolling ball on an incline.
Yeah.
Pretty standard mechanics, actually.
Like high school physics class?
Sort of, yeah, but applied quite specifically. Think about gravity pulling the ball down the slope and friction working against it. The app uses formulas to model those forces.
Okay.
But here's a more advanced bit. It uses something called the product rule of stimp distance and maximum slope.
Okay, what does that mean in plain English?
It means it's not just looking at the overall slope, like the average tilt.
Mhm.
It considers how the steepness changes and how the speed of that specific green, the stimp reading, affects how the ball reacts to those changes. It allows for a much more nuanced prediction.
So it's factoring in the green speed and the slope together in a specific mathematical way.
Precisely. How they interact is crucial.
And I read something about optimizing the ball speed, too. It's not just about the line.
Absolutely critical. The app helps find that sweet spot for speed. It seems that around 1 mile per hour, which is roughly 3 rotations per second,
Right.
the hole effectively becomes bigger from the ball's perspective,
Mhm.
about 3.5 inches wide. It gives you a slightly larger target.
Interesting. So hitting it at the right speed increases your margin for error?
Exactly. But interestingly, if you hit it harder than that optimal speed, that perceived hole size actually shrinks.
Really? Why is that?
It's about how the ball interacts with the lip of the cup, the momentum. Harder putts are less likely to drop on the edges, so the app guides both line and pace.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, practicalities. How does someone actually use this? Let's break it down for, say, an amateur first. Maybe
Yeah.
one who has the app's measuring tool, the cerimeter.
Right. For amateurs who can use the cerimeter for precise slope measurements, it's pretty straightforward. The advice is to practice, maybe the day before, go to where tomorrow's pin might be.
Okay.
Place the app, get the slope reading, input the green stimp rating, hit calculate,
And boom.
and boom. It gives you the exact line and the target speed for that putt.
Yeah.
The real power, though, comes from doing this systematically,
Meaning?
meaning doing it for all the holes and ideally for all the likely pin positions if it's a multi-day tournament.
Yep.
You build a data-driven plan.
Like doing your homework on the greens beforehand. Got it. Now, what about pros? They often can't use measurement devices in practice rounds, right? Tournament rules.
Correct. So for them, it's a bit more observational on the course, but the app is still central later.
Hmm.
They'll typically find the playing line, first basically center fairway to center green.
Okay.
Then they'll putt uphill towards the hole from near that line and watch the break closely. Does it curve right? Fall line is left, curves left, fall line is right. They find the spot where it rolls straight uphill.
Ah, so that identifies the direction of the steepest slope, the fall line.
Exactly. They note the angle of that fall line relative to their playing line. Then for the slope amount,
Yeah, how do they estimate that without a tool?
they'll typically walk 3 big steps downhill along that initial playing line and estimate the height difference visually. The guideline often used is about 1 inch of drop equals a 1% slope. It's an estimate, but a trained eye gets pretty good.
Okay, so it requires some judgment there.
It does. And they need to note that estimated slope and repeat the whole fall line observation for all 4 likely pin zones on each green.
Wow, that's still a lot of field work.
It is. But then the key step is later, maybe back at the hotel that evening. They take all that collected data, fall line direction, estimated slope for each pin location, and feed it into the Puttalyze app.
Ah, so the app does the heavy lifting calculation-wise based on their observation.
Precisely. The app then generates the exact breaks, the aim points, the required putt length, and speed for every potential putt they might face the next day.
That's quite a system. Okay, let's talk impact, the
Yeah.
potential payoff. For amateurs, the suggestion is maybe shaving off at least 1 stroke per round. That sounds pretty good.
It's significant. For an amateur, 1 stroke less per round. That directly lowers your handicap. It could be the difference between breaking 90 or 80 consistently. In club tournaments, 1 stroke is often huge.
Yeah, it can definitely decide things.
It's a real tangible advantage.
And for the pros, where everything is tighter, margins are thinner, the impact could be even bigger, couldn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Ah.
At that elite level, fractions of a stroke per round are massive. Shaving even, say, half a stroke or a full stroke per round could easily move a player from, T30 to top 10, or even contending to win,
And the knock-on effects of that.
are huge.
Yeah.
When you look at the potential financial side, the estimates mentioned are like $2.5 to $4 million more per year from prize money, bonuses, endorsements.
Just from improving putting by maybe 1 stroke, that's incredible.
It underlines how critical putting is at that level. That single save stroke per round translates into serious money and career opportunities.
Yeah, it's not just the checks, is it? It's rankings, sponsorships.
Exactly. Better finishes mean higher world rankings, which gets you into bigger events, attracts better sponsors, enhances your whole career path. So yeah, an app like this, if it delivers, isn't just a putting aid, it's potentially a career accelerator.
So it really frames tournament prep differently, moving from, like you said, feel and guesswork.
To something much more like precise science, using data, using physics.
Yeah, applying technology to understand a really crucial part of golf much more deeply.
And the interesting thing is, this kind of tech is becoming more accessible. It's not some secret weapon only a few can get.
Right. The info we saw basically says, hey, you listeners can just download the Puttalyze app and try it out, see if it clicks for you.
Exactly. It encourages that personal experimentation. See if this scientific approach feels right for your game.
Okay, so wrapping this up. Our deep dive into the Puttalyze app shows it's offering a really different way to read Green's data-driven scientific based on physics.
Moving beyond just the visual and the intuitive.
Yeah. It aims to give more accuracy, less uncertainty, and potentially, for golfers at any level, real improvements in scores, handicap, maybe even careers for the pros.
It definitely makes you think, doesn't it? About how tech and data are changing sports everywhere, even in parts you think are purely about touch or instinct.
That's a great final thought. Where else in sports or even other fields could this kind of data-driven scientific approach reveal things we haven't seen before? Something to chew on.